The pain and betrayal I had endured because of James were beyond anything I could ever explain. When I found myself lying in a hospital bed, still weak and recovering, I was forced to face a reality I had tried to ignore for too long. James, the man I had once trusted and built a life with, had no hesitation in abandoning me in my most vulnerable state. But even worse, he was attempting to sell our home without my consent so he could run away with his mistress. The shock of his actions made my hospital stay even longer. As the stress took a serious toll on my health, I felt helpless and unsure of what to do next. I knew I had to find a way to stop him before it was too late, for Anna and for myself. With worry clouding my mind, I reached out to Anna, desperate to know if we still had a home to return to. The moment I heard her voice, my heart ached with concern, but surprisingly, she remained calm and reassured me. Despite James's claims, the house had not been sold. At first, I was confused. James had been so certain of his plan, but Anna soon explained what had happened. James had intended to handle the sale through his mistress, assuming I would be too sick to stop him. However, my in-laws had intervened in an unexpected way. While I had been in the hospital, they had stepped in to protect our home from being taken away. Anna had informed them of James's intentions, and together, they had devised a plan to prevent him from succeeding. Her maturity and quick thinking filled me with pride, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. After a few more days in the hospital, I was finally discharged. Instead of returning straight to my own home, I was taken to my in-laws' house, where Anna and my mother-in-law welcomed me with warmth and kindness. The contrast between their support and James's betrayal was painfully clear. My father-in-law even apologized for his son's behavior, expressing his disappointment in James's choices. Their genuine care for me and Anna was evident, and I was grateful beyond words. As we prepared to return home, an unexpected confrontation unfolded. In front of our house, James and his mistress were in a heated argument with a realtor. Their frustration was clear, and their appearance was unkempt, stark proof that their plans had gone terribly wrong. I learned that the buyer they had secured had backed out at the last minute, leaving their entire scheme in ruins. Approaching the scene, I felt a mixture of emotions. I was angry, hurt, and yet, somewhat vindicated. Seeing their downfall firsthand was a moment I had never anticipated, but it was clear that their selfish actions had finally caught up with them. When James noticed me, his shock was impossible to miss. His mistress appeared equally stunned, their expressions revealing their disbelief. Then, as if on cue, they immediately turned to accusations, claiming I had somehow sabotaged the sale. I was taken aback by their audacity, but I remained composed. I calmly introduced myself to the realtor, making it clear that I was the rightful owner of the home. James, however, refused to back down. His anger was fueled by desperation, as he had counted on the money from the sale to fund his reckless lifestyle. He began ranting about their financial troubles, revealing that his debts had spiraled out of control due to his mistress's lavish spending. Then came the moment that changed everything. With a steady voice, I explained that the supposed buyers of our home were none other than my in-laws. They had outmaneuvered James, ensuring that he could not sell the property without my approval. Anna had played a crucial role in making this happen, convincing her grandparents that the house, an inheritance from my father, was too important to be lost. James was furious. He lashed out at his parents, accusing them of meddling in his affairs, but his words carried no weight. He had already proven his selfishness time and time again, and his parents had no interest in supporting his reckless decisions any longer. Anna, standing by my side, was unwavering in her determination. She had stood up to her father in a way that I never could have imagined, and I couldn't have been prouder of her strength. At that moment, I pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared, handing them to James. I made it clear that our marriage was over. He scoffed at me, dismissing the idea that I could survive without him. But he was wrong. I wasn't alone. I had Anna, and I had the unwavering support of my in-laws. Then came another revelation, one that left James utterly speechless. My in-laws had made a decision that would alter the course of everything. They had chosen to transfer a portion of their assets to me, ensuring that Anna and I would have financial stability moving forward. This was their way of recognizing the love and dedication I had given to their family, especially after I had donated a kidney to James in the past. Their gesture was a testament to the respect they had for me, something James had never been capable of showing. James's disbelief quickly turned to rage. He had assumed he would inherit his parents' wealth, but now, that was no longer the case. He threatened to fight their decision in court, but it was clear he had no real means to do so. His financial irresponsibility and moral failures had left him with nothing. I stood my ground, making it clear that he would be held accountable for child support and emotional damages. If he failed to comply, I would pursue legal action without hesitation. James and his mistress had no choice but to flee, humiliated and defeated. As the chaos settled, the realtor, who had witnessed the entire debacle, thanked me for clarifying the situation. I assured him that I was sorry for the unnecessary drama, but he simply nodded in understanding. With the matter resolved, Anna and I walked away, her hand in mine. Her admiration for my strength was evident, and in that moment, I knew that everything I had done was worth it. The divorce process was surprisingly smooth, closing a painful chapter of my life with an ease I hadn't expected. Looking back, I wondered why I had endured so much suffering for so long, but now, that no longer mattered. James's life continued to crumble, his reckless spending, job loss, and the collapse of his affair left him struggling to get by. It was a fitting outcome for someone who had treated his family with such disregard. As for me, I found a renewed sense of purpose. With Anna's encouragement, I began pursuing a career in Photoshop, something I had always been passionate about. Thanks to my in-laws' generosity, I had the means to start fresh, though I was still building my client base. The positive feedback I received fueled my determination. Each new project reminded me of the bright future ahead, a future filled with hope, strength, and endless possibilities for Anna and me. I recently discovered something that shook my entire world. My husband, James, had sold our house for $610,000 and planned to leave me and our daughter, Anna, behind so he could start a new life with his girlfriend. This revelation hit me like a bolt of lightning, completely unexpected and devastating. What made it even more shocking was that James broke the news to me over the phone while he was in the hospital. His tone was casual, as if he was talking about the weather, not about turning our lives upside down. I was left completely speechless, unable to process the sheer audacity of his words. The house he sold wasn't just any home. It was a precious family heirloom, passed down to me by my father. It held countless memories and deep sentimental value. To hear James talk about selling it so carelessly was like a punch to the gut. And as if that wasn't enough, he casually admitted to having a girlfriend on the side. My heart sank. It felt like my entire marriage had been a lie. What made everything even worse was his reaction when I mentioned our daughter, Anna. Instead of showing even the slightest bit of concern, James dismissed my worries coldly. He didn't care that his actions would leave his own child and me without a home. He was ready to walk away without looking back. Anger and pain surged through me. I couldn't sit back and let this happen. I knew I had to act quickly to stop the sale before it was finalized. Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Laura Brown, and I am 35 years old. I once dreamed of a peaceful and happy life with my family. But reality has been far from that dream. My marriage to James has been anything but smooth, and over the past 2 years, I've watched the man I fell in love with turn into someone I barely recognize. James had been changing, growing distant and secretive. I suspected for a long time that he was being unfaithful, but I had no solid proof. There were signs: unfamiliar perfume clinging to his clothes, expensive gifts that I never received, and his frequent late nights out. Deep down, I knew something was wrong, but without clear evidence, I felt powerless to confront him. James worked at a manufacturing plant, but over time, his habits changed. He started staying out late more often, making excuses about work or meeting up with friends. His absences became more frequent, and my suspicions grew. But every time I considered confronting him, I hesitated. I wanted undeniable proof before I accused him of something so serious. Thinking back to when we first met, it's hard to believe how much things have changed. A decade ago, James was a warm and honest man who won my heart effortlessly. After 3 years of dating, we got married, and soon after, our daughter, Anna, was born. To the outside world, we seemed like the perfect family. But behind closed doors, cracks began to appear in our relationship. Parenting brought its own set of challenges, and I struggled to manage everything alone. As a stay-at-home mom, I was responsible for taking care of Anna, but I still needed James's help with tasks like bathing her and preparing her meals. At first, he helped willingly, but as time passed, his enthusiasm faded. He started making excuses, claiming he was too tired after work. His frustration grew, and he began arguing that since I stayed home, everything related to our daughter should be my responsibility. James's withdrawal from parenting didn't stop at chores. He ignored Anna's requests to play with him, pushing all emotional support onto me. When she cried, he lacked patience and blamed me for spoiling her. I found myself growing more isolated, as Anna and I formed a world of our own, seeking comfort in each other. Despite feeling overwhelmed, I longed for a small piece of personal time, just a moment to enjoy reading or watching a movie. But there was never an opportunity. Meanwhile, James seemed to do whatever he pleased without a second thought about the imbalance in our household. He dismissed my exhaustion and ignored how his behavior affected both Anna and me. Financially, I was dependent on James, which made confronting him even harder. I worried about what would happen if I stood up to him. How would I support Anna on my own? So, I endured, hoping things would change. But years passed, and James only became more distant, more critical, and more indifferent. I navigated our daily lives with one goal: to avoid conflict and ensure Anna's well-being, even at the cost of my own happiness. One afternoon, Anna and I were drawing together when she looked up at me with admiration and said, "Mom, you're really good at this. You should be an artist." Her innocent words stirred something inside me. I had always loved drawing, especially using Photoshop, but over the years, I had pushed my passion aside. Hearing my daughter believe in me reignited a spark. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward for us. Art had always been my escape. My friends, Margaret and Carol, often complimented my work, marveling at my ability to create beautiful digital illustrations. Despite everything going on in my life, drawing remained one of the few things that still brought me joy. Anna was growing into a remarkable young girl, honest, kind, and full of life. She was well liked at school, a stark contrast to my own reserved nature. Even her teachers adored her. Seeing her pride in me made me want to be stronger. One evening, James stumbled into the house, drunk again. I was used to this sight, but something about that night felt different. After he passed out, I found a motel receipt in his pocket. My heart pounded as I stared at it. This was the proof I had been waiting for, evidence of his infidelity. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had found. I had always told myself I needed solid proof before confronting him. Now I had it. But before I could figure out what to do, an unexpected call from an unknown number changed everything. It was the hospital. James had been admitted for emergency surgery due to a severe kidney condition. His doctors informed me that he might need a transplant. Despite everything, the thought of losing him terrified me. Shockingly, I turned out to be the best match for the transplant. Even after all his betrayals, I agreed to the surgery without hesitation. But just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, James dropped another bombshell on me. As I was recovering in the hospital, he called me, his tone light-hearted and carefree. I expected gratitude. Instead, he told me he had sold our house for $610,000 and was leaving with his mistress. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. This house, my father's house, was gone, just like that. And James had done it without any remorse. His response when I brought up our daughter crushed me even more. He had no intention of fighting for custody, no intention of even seeing her. He didn't care what happened to her, or me. After everything I had done for him, he discarded us like we were nothing. My world had crumbled, but I refused to let it break me. James had made his choice. Now, it was time for me to make mine.